What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we are here with Heinrich of the Almighty Horndal. Thank you so much for being here today. It's great to talk with you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah,
great to have you here. We got a very exciting 2021 ahead of us because we got Lake Drinker coming out very soon via Prosthetic Records. Could the first two singles that you released, Horndal's Bloodbad and Rosen, maybe serve as a good representation of what's in store for this album, or is there a lot more to come?
I think it's quite representative, but it's a quite wide range of music this time. It's still in the heavy area, but we tried to expand this a little bit. So in one of the songs you mentioned, Horndal's Blodbad, you will hear different instrumentations like vibraphone and glockenspiel and stuff like that. But it's still very gnarly music.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Is it more or less kind of like continuing in the vein of what we heard on your last album, Remains, or is this like a new beginning or stepping into more uncharted territory?
I think we can talk lyric wise, first of all, because that's not the question people are asking. But on the first album, we were trying to describe what actually happened in our town 40 years ago when the steel mill was shut down and all the sad things that happened after that. On this record, we're focusing on what's happening now because we have a situation where a big tech American big tech company. On this record, we're focusing on what's happening now, and uh, because a big American tech company called Google are going to build server facilities there, and uh, yeah, that's it's like we have a new devil in town, so to speak.
It's almost
But the
kind.
music,
Oh, you were saying?
yeah. But music wise, we try to develop our sound. It's still like hard music, but we're trying to broaden it a little bit and try to get it more with more contrasts, but not losing the 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 feel that we had on Remains.
Hmm. Did you think of these concepts before you start the songwriting process, before you start anything, or do these ideas kind of come as you're more further into the songwriting process?
Talking about the lyrics, I think this was kind of the plan because it kind of emerged to us because writing the first record, we got the news about Google coming to Horndal, and we thought in the first place, this is a bad thing for our band because we are describing the, the sad things that actually happened there. And is our town going to flourish now? That's not a good thing for us, so to speak, ironically said. Then we realized that no, Google isn't the nicest guys in the world, and by a big tech company that are having a internal saying like "Don't be evil" can't be a good company. So we 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 we've we realized that we had some good stuff working
Hmm.
with that then.
Yeah.
But music wise, it's kind of it takes us where we just trying to like work around and see what happens with music, and this is what happened this time.
Hmm. It's funny too that you mentioned that. You led me perfectly into the next question because obviously, having a concept in mind that influences the lyrics. But do you feel that the music also, like, let's say this album was instrumental? Do you think that it would also sort of like convey that same concept in a way?
Yeah, yeah, it maybe in some ways, and I guess you had a lot of interviews with band who had been producing the records during this virus shit situation. But this kind of fitted us very well because all musicians in the world were kind of not having a job. So then we could really experiment with stuffs, and we contacted the radio, the symphonic or this the biggest symphonic orchestra in Sweden because I know a guy there, and they had like we have plenty of time. We can play with you if you want to. So then we got the chance to use one of the percussionists there.
Hmm.
and but it's for a reason. Maybe we were not thinking about Google when we were writing the music, but we were thinking about our hometown. There, our has been, you know, like Klondike for 40 years now, and we were trying to create that feeling of the music, uh, combine the anger that people are feeling, and the rawness and the the sad vibe of it, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then these kind of instruments were very useful.
Yeah. Do you feel like when it comes to this idea, because I feel like it is something, Google is our God. Like I'm just gonna say that right now. And
Yeah,
whether you
yeah,
like it or not, like it is God at the moment because
yeah,
everybody has, the love-hate relationship with it. But like when it
yeah.
comes to like this concept, are you writing mainly from a personal place, or is there kind of like a lot of research that goes involved into the making of this?
It's actually a lot of research in this. Writing about the Google situation demanded a lot of research, and then we came to this conclusion that Google building these server facilitations, they wanted to use our big lake as cooling water. And that's not a good thing for the environment, because if you do that, the lake will get warmer and the fish will die. So that's why we wrote this song, Rossen, and that's why the album is called Lake Drinker, because Google is the big lake drinker, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's what one of the research stuffs I did,
Yeah.
and it was and something when you're working with this stuff, you meet people and you see stuff that you didn't know existed. For instance, on the song Horndals Blodbad, in the video that you maybe have seen, that's just very sad photos from Horndal. And these pictures are because I bumped into a person on Instagram that was taking all these sad pictures of Horndal, and I realized that this person is a refugee from Iran, staying in Horndal, waiting for her to get her permit to stay in Sweden. And she's a dissident journalist and couldn't stay in Iran for that reason. And she's a really clever woman. And her sister, they went to Sweden, and then they helped us with these pictures, creating this very doomy video.
Yeah, it seems like like even though there's a lot of research involved, I think Google is one of those things where we're gonna have an experience with it one way or another. And do you try to
Yeah.
maybe is the goal of Lake Drinker to maybe inform a listener on what you are currently going through, or do you kind of maybe think that the album could also be open to interpretation a little bit?
Of course it can be open to interpretation, but I have a opinion in that if I'm writing very personal and very locally lyrics and create stories that are very vivid for us in our small community, it can be. I think a lot of people will realize that it's the same situation in their place. We got a lot of comments from people all around the world that are telling the same story. We had a big factory and it was shut down, and now it's like a desert here. So yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that's the answer I didn't, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think like in the end, because Fear Factory is one of my favorite bands that and they sing a lot
Yeah.
about how artificial intelligence could take over,
Mm-hmm.
and really a lot of their albums predicted what we're living in now. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that this is another good way, because a lot of people, like if I showed Horndal to my friends, there's like a lot of elements of black metal and a lot of elements of rawness
Yeah.
and traditional death
Yeah.
metal. And why do you feel that, maybe kind of going back, we discussed a little bit before, but why do you feel that the
Yeah.
style of music that you play best supports the concept that you have?
Horndal is a town of heavy music has been since ages. It's close to a bigger city, and in the 80s, the people that were listening to new romantic and synth music were living there and having all these nice shirts and stuff, and we were frowned upon coming from Horndal
Were they
because we were
listening to
listening to heavy
Kent?
music. Yeah, so it has been this for since I was 10. It has always been heavy music, and then this heavy music kind of flourished in so it's very big in this area of Sweden. We have a lot of famous death metal band from this area.
Yeah, as for all of Sweden, like
Yeah,
because it's the capital of melodic. I mean, Sweden
yeah,
came with melodic death metal. Like
yeah.
in fact,
But that's the difference between Stockholm, the West Coast and the East Coast.
yeah,
The melodic death metal is from Gothenburg, and we're living more close to Stockholm, and then it's more entombed and the punkier death metal sound.
yeah.
All these HM2 sounds and the Sunlight Studio you probably heard about that created all these productions.
Was Refused kind of in your similar vein in a way?
Yeah, they're from the north, but we feel kind of connected to them. My brother, the Pontus, the drummer in the band, he's like 10 years younger than I am, so he kind of grew up on Refused and the hardcore scene, and just and the bass player too. So me and the other guitarists, we kind of the metal guys, and they are the hardcore guys. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a mix there.
hmm Do you think that like this album, that Lake Drinker, follows a narrative where like they need to start off with Rosen and end with Arman, or could a listener maybe like approach this album from multiple angles? Could like this album be, or do you, in order to fully get the concept, they should start from song one, end with song 11?
I think you can listen to it in what way you want. Me myself, who have been listening to these songs for a year now, just waiting for it to get released. I always press the shuffle button, and the record kind of opens up in a different way if you just change the. It's like swapping the chapters in a book, and you get another story. So I think you can do it as you want, but choosing this the songs in this order, that is not an easy thing because when you're so into it, me and Pontus, my brother, we are kind of talking about this all day long. We had actually a different song that we wanted as a album opener, but our producer, called Daniel Lidén, he told us that's the most boring song on the record. Well, what are you saying? So we listened to him, and then it went like this.
Mhm. Do you feel like when Google is becoming such a prevalent aspect in our life, there is, artificial intelligence, and like with, there's a lot of great things that have come from Google, and there's a lot of,
Of course,
atrocious things.
yeah.
And this is obviously focusing on the negative aspects of it, but do you have maybe a different perception on the world around you with this age that we're living in? Did maybe making this album bring closure or acceptance to the world that we're living in a way, or made you see it through a new lens?
I maybe I use Google stuff all day long, as you probably do, but this story about Google and Horndal made it very concrete because you never get to see Google. You don't know where Google is. In your laptop, and it's in your phone, and it's kind of everywhere. But now I know where it physically are. They're going to build this stuff in Horndal, and then it went very concrete. They actually already swooped away all the trees, so it's a big deforesting area, like a dead space, and they haven't built anything there. So to me, they are always bragging about that they're working with renewables, and they're organic, blah blah blah.
Oh, they're full of shit.
Company. Yeah, they're full of shit. And then just come to Horndal and watch that place, and they're going to use our lake. They actually already are destroying the nature, and then they're what the big boss Larry Page. I read a story that he saved one tree on his at his house for zillions of dollars just to save one tree, and then his guys went to Horndal and like swooped away thousands of them.
It's like that
So
with a lot of it's like that with a lot of aspects of reality, to be honest, where I think
yeah,
people say that they're doing one thing but then they are completely doing the other thing. It's like I
yeah,
remember when there was a huge like a huge thing to protect the environment in New York City, like a real march
yeah,
for it. After that
yeah,
march was over, I look at New York City, I've saw garbage I've never seen, and I live in New York
yeah,
City. I live in New
yeah,
York City. But
yeah,
after that march, I've never seen more garbage on the streets. Recyclable cans just crushed everywhere. Like
yeah,
I see like people saying we need to eat organic. We need to eat all organic,
mm,
and now let's spray
yeah,
pesticide and MIC gas all over our crops. It's like every
yeah,
and Google isn't just guilty of this. This is humanity. We're an
yeah.
ironic species. We
We're
say
we're we're
yeah,
stupid. We're stupid.
well,
We're too stupid for.
Well, I think that's the easy way out. I think humans are very complex. I think we're very ironic. I
Yeah,
think we as humans, we're the only species that has the ability to entertain ourselves in a very complex way, and as a result,
yeah,
we unfortunately entertain ideas that lead to catastrophe.
yeah. I get talking about my hometown there. It's it. I'm actually living in Stockholm these days because you can't find jobs in that area for a reason. But one thing you've probably been in smaller towns talking about this stupidity when thousands of people are gathering and they're leaving garbage all over. You can't do that in a small town because everybody knows who you are.
Yep.
So that's a positive aspect of letting all these small towns to keep them.
Yeah.
This is if you want to talk about politics, this is the biggest problem in Sweden as in America, because when all this urbanization is happening, when all these people are moving to the big cities and leaving the rest of the Sweden just to die, that creates anger, and that creates racism, and it creates right wing extremists, and it creates like the Capitolium stuff and the QAnon and stuff like that. I think it's a similar story here.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's full of people who are lost,
we're
and
we're dividing our countries right now, and that's a big problem.
yeah. I mean, I've always like living in New York City. Like I've always liked, I've always wanted to be a city boy. I grew up in the country. I moved to the city because I love
Yeah, me
this
too.
urbanization where I live in
Mm.
a city where there's multiple cultures coming into one. You learn a lot
Yeah,
about the world around you, but
yeah,
but again, there's like a lot of negativity and a lot of lost
mm.
souls, and
Yeah,
I'll tell you this, and it's the more people you're surrounded by, the more alone you feel. That's what I've learned living in the city as well. There's a real psychological impact to moving into an urban environment, and it seems like that's going to be happening, or that is happening right now in Sweden.
yeah, it's happening here as well. Yeah, I read you, but we have to think about what we're going to do when all these other areas are left behind,
Yeah,
even if it's nicer in the big city.
yeah, I think I really hope that this people listen to this album because I think it can inform them on that. I've always said that artists are the basis of ideas and are taking complex mannerisms and bringing it into ways that people can understand or resonate with. Everybody fucking loves metal, especially in Sweden.
Yeah,
I
and
think I
and
think
good to talk to a metal guy from New York. I haven't spoke to one. This is the first time.
well, I'm honored to be the first. I'm
Yeah,
honored to be the first. You're not
yeah.
the first person from Sweden I interviewed.
No.
I think I've interviewed thousands at this point. But
Okay. Uh, Glad to be that one then. The thousands.
yeah. Well, this was a very
Yeah.
in-depth discussion because like everybody knows Sweden is like I know people who aren't metalheads who know that Sweden is the metal capital, but like
Yeah.
but to a lot of metalheads, they would think that, oh, you're from Sweden, so your band must sound like At the Gates or The Haunted. But
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
but
But we don't.
yeah, I think you have your own sort of thing, and I think you have kind of like a rebellious nature behind your sound, where like you have, from what you're telling me, and I didn't
Yeah,
really know about this until we started this interview, but now I really get an essence of punk when I listen to
yeah,
Horndal. There is a
yeah.
rebellion in it.
It's punk there, absolutely.
Yep.
We're angry, old angry guys. Uh,
Yeah. Well, we're young, angry folks here, so we need to work
yeah,
together. The
great.
generations need to
Okay.
unite. Um,
Yeah, let's do that.
yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today and for a very informative conversation.
Yeah,
Um, is there
thank you very much.
just with two things? Is there anything you would like to promote for Horndal, or would you also like maybe for where people could research on this whole thing that's happening, where people could maybe inform themselves and see if they could help?
Yeah, I think it is a boring thing to say, but follow us on Facebook and Instagram because we are telling these stories all day long, and on our YouTube, we're actually doing documentaries right now about this stuff, about a guy who was demonstrating against the shutdown in 1977 and got his passport revoked from the secret police. It sounds like we like Russia, but it actually happened. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Like it was a danger to the, yeah. So there's a lot of stories, and we're pulling them out all the time. So follow us on Facebook, and we'll see.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Heinrich. Everybody, we are here with Heinrich of Horndal. Be sure to check out Lake Drinker, coming out via Prosthetic Records, April 9th, 2021. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, Ali.